Let's get this party started!
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
Don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amidst chaos.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the show. It is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. I hope you've had a fantastic week. If you missed the show on Tuesday, we brought you a lot about the auto pen scandal and Snap and many other things. And today we are going to continue bringing the things to you that matter. I'm sure there are other things that matter, but this is what I think matters today for you to know. And that's what we're going to cover. And that includes clips from last night's Turning Point USA event where J.D. Vance, our vice president, I mean, I've never seen anything like this, a current elected official who is standing in front of a crowd answering totally unpredictable questions, not vetted. He did not have them ahead of time, and it was, anything goes, basically. But I was struck last night by J.D. Vance being ready to be your next president of the United States. Not to diminish Trump or anything like that, but it is actually very encouraging to look at what he was saying, hearing what he was saying, how he was delivering it, how articulate he was being, how polite he was being, funny he was being, strong, etc. And knowing this is likely the political future of our country. And I sort of look at it as Donald Trump had to break the system and rebuild it. And J.D. Vance is the next chapter to take it to another level, standing on the shoulders of a giant like President Trump. So we're going to play some clips from that event last night. 10,000 plus people there. Erica Kirk spoke as well. And of course, all the haters come out against her. I saw Nick Fuentes, that little squirrel looking dude, saying, that Erica Kirk is a plant and, it's part of the political system and blah, 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 blah. And that it was, she's faking. Where's your evidence of that? Right? And so anyway, the haters are going to come out. I mean, the whole reason that Turning Point USA appointed Erica Kirk so quickly is because if you've ever worked in the nonprofit world, and I have, the big thing that you have to guard against is donors becoming, developing a lack of confidence in things going forward. You don't want that. And so they had to come out quickly and reassure all those donors and members of TPUSA that it was going to continue. And that's kind of the difference when you're dealing with a situation where someone is a believer in Christ and you are confident in where they are now, while you grieve, of course. The difference, though, is that Charlie Kirk spelled out where things should go and what should happen. He absolutely had this, premonition that his life was going to end early. We've seen text messages that he's exchanged with Candace Owens to that extent. I'm not saying everything Candace is saying is true, but he had that instinct that he needed to plan ahead, and he did. And so rather than wait around and allow speculation to run rampant and donors to fall off, when they knew what he wanted and they had the assurance of knowing he was in heaven, it totally changes the demeanor of how someone might look at a tragic event like that. I believe that. I mean, people criticize that there were fireworks or pyrotechnics during his memorial service. Now, I grant you, there's some things that are weird about it that I wouldn't do, but that doesn't mean that it's nefarious or something. But the idea was it was a celebration of his life. And the world has a hard time getting their mind around that mindset. When you have an eternal mindset and you have somebody whose life exemplified that. Charlie was not perfect, and I definitely want to guard against, what would Charlie do from the standpoint of being better than what would Jesus do? But there are plenty of situations where you'd say, what would Charlie do in this situation? because, maybe you're in a situation where you're having a debate with someone who has a different point of view. But that, doesn't mean that you should apply that to everything. But the celebration of his life with the pyrotechnics and all that stuff, I mean, they do pyrotechnics at those big rallies like that anyway. So just because you can't understand it, just because you can't relate to it, doesn't mean there's evidence that something malicious was going on or that this was planned. I mean, I think it's absurd, the people that allege that TPUSA, was in on this whole thing. It's crazy to me. But anyway, that event happened last night at Ole Miss. We're going to play some clips from that. Bree is already in the chat and says Vance was awesome last night. I agree. I told somebody a couple weeks ago, the more I hear JD Vance speak, the more I like him and the more I trust him. You just don't know about these politicians. We have a pretty good backstory of this guy with the hillbilly elegy or whatever. I know it's made for, it's a movie, so not everything in it's exact, but you have a general idea of his background, which is endearing as somebody who came up from poverty. And then you have, his history where he was working out in Silicon Valley and, as an attorney, and you go, oh, I don't know about that. And then he's a senator and you're like, oh, he's part of the system. Well, I'm telling you, this guy, I've never seen anybody as articulate with the right tone and the outsider mentality, but the insider way of knowing how to get things done. I mean, it's a pretty incredible package. Now, it's not to say it's not possible, the more the time goes on, we find stuff out about him we don't like, but so far, this guy has really grown into this position. President Trump has trusted him and allowed him to have responsibility and he hasn't micromanaged him or stuck him over in the Naval Observatory and said, just be quiet. He's actually allowed him some responsibility and he's been able to get a lot of things done and he's grown into this position. Sometimes we're, an opportunity comes along and we say, I'm not ready for that. Well, you may not be at that exact moment, but you've done the work to be at that place at that point in your life. And when the opportunity presents itself to further exercise the gifts and skills that you've been blessed with and have developed, then magic happens. And that's really what I would describe as what's happened with JD Vance. So we'll talk about that. Plus, Kamala Harris is dogging President Biden. We've got some clips of that. We've also got her getting upset with an Australian interview reporter. Some clips of Newsom. Chuck Schumer is cussing. I don't know why Democrats think this is going to endear them. I mean, people are critical of Trump when he's dropping, these cuss words. President Trump doesn't make videos to have an opportunity to cuss. Typically, it's in response to something and he's making some kind of emphatic statement. I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you that's the difference. It's not manufactured. And so it comes off as totally inauthentic and cringeworthy when these Democrats are doing that. Also, the Arctic Frost investigation with Jack Smith and others where tons of Republicans were spied on, tons of, people in Congress and the Senate, including organizations like TPUSA and Charlie Kirk, were spied on secretly. Judge Boasberg, this guy, or is it a girl? It's a dude. There's so many judges, so little time. Granted these warrants. And so you got people like Senator Ted Cruz calling for the impeachment of this judge. So we're going to get this Arctic Frost spying conspiracy makes Watergate look like freaking McDonald's on a Saturday. I mean, it's nothing. Plus, we'll talk more about Snap. We'll talk about Trump versus China. There's allegedly a November 5th protest going to be happening in D.C. against Trump. These narco boats continue to be bombed. What do you think about that? What do you think about the narco boats being bombed? And of course, daylight saving time kicks in this weekend, so there's a push from lawmakers to make it permanent one way or the other. We've talked about that. It's been a while since we talked about that. I was hoping that was something that would get done in the first 100 days. Personally, I hoped it happened right after spring, after we sprang forward, and then that would be the last time. But that didn't happen. And now we're about to fall back an hour this weekend. It's nice for a little while because you get that extra hour of sleep or whatever. But the early darkness, I hate it. Some people are okay with it because they like the early light in the day. So we'll talk about all of those things. You can help us out in the algorithm right now. Hit the heart if you are watching on X and repost us right now. Heart the post and repost. And if you're watching on Rumble, hit the thumbs up and repost. And then, of course, share, thumbs up, whatever that looks like on whatever platform you happen to be watching us on. We're streaming on Rumble, Instagram, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So help us, please. It's the least you can do, right? If you like the show, we've got Hammy Jammy 77 in the chat as well. We want your comments on the show, in the chat. Love to see what you're thinking about what we're talking about. Thank you to Lucinda for reposting this feed on X as well. So please do your thing right now and help us get the word out there. Apparently X has changed its algorithm, which is now causing us even, I would say, more issues than we had before. So anyway, any help you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Okay, let's get into this. Yeah. All right, JD Vance. If you missed it last night, I watched. I think I watched his whole thing last night, and he took questions for over an hour. Red Eagle Politics describes his speech and question answering in this fashion. JD Vance praised the 1924 Immigration Act, saying that we need to significantly cut legal immigration to our nation to let our nation recover and heal. Now, this is one of those stances, like this is Vance now taking it a step further than maybe has been communicated thus far. Of course, you got to get the problem under control first, then you make those policy changes going forward. But his point is we need to allow time for assimilation. He said the same thing happened in the 1920s, 30s, something like that, where for 40 years we basically let nobody new in because of the influx. There had to be, time had to be allowed for assimilation because it was just chaotic. Plus, he talked about the diluting of the middle class job sector because of it, and just many reasons why it is damaging. I mean, no other country is allowing this kind of thing to happen because they want to survive. Yet we're supposed to be the ones that let everybody in. This is ridiculous. Vance also said it is totally reasonable and acceptable for people to want to live around people that speak the same language and share things in common with. This is actually, this is a human trait. I mean, you can trace it back. I mean, this is just basic human behavior. Not all the time, but most of the time, we gravitate toward communities and circles and neighborhoods that reflect our same values. We tend to move to places or hang around people that look like us, speak like us, have a similar worldview as us. Not all the time, okay? You can have plenty of friends of different views, right? But I'm talking about generally. If you want to see an example of this, you see the different groups, the ethnic groups that have migrated to the United States, And it's really, really interesting because these groups tend to settle in the same areas going back 200 years in this country, plus 2 to 300, really, I guess. And it's like, well, why would they do that? They could have gone anywhere. Well, people like to stick together. And what's interesting is even some ethnic groups that oppose each other and have migrated from maybe the same area where they were also in opposition to each other, they still live in at least some close proximity. I don't know if it's familiarity, strength in numbers, but to act like this is somehow racist or absurd or xenophobic or something like that is to deny history. I mean, at the very least, lowest bar, there should be an expectation of people speaking the same language as you where you live. Vance also said we cannot be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. This was a pretty big moment. He was asked a question about the National Guard being on the ground in these various cities and cleaning up crime, Memphis, DC, etc. Hey, I like what is happening. This funny kid got up, did like a Ricky Bobby impression, and it was a pretty fun exchange. But basically said, I like the results, but I'm disturbed that the concept is being normalized when Democrats get in there. What are they going to do about it? And that's why, and that's when Vance said, we can't be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. If it's what is right, we need to do it. The left is, if there's something that can be abused, the left is going to do it regardless of whether the right does it or not. He's also asked some, multiple questions about Israel. The younger generation is really interested in this. And he provided a correct, nuanced, and winning message on Israel while still shutting down the anti-Israel hysteria plaguing the discourse. I'm okay with people being critical, but my gosh, when you blame everything on Israel and no matter what they do, it's wrong, while overlooking all the wrongs that other countries do that we also give money, it comes across as, disingenuous or, short-sighted, tunnel vision a little bit. I thought Vance struck a very reasonable tone where, the question was basically, the premise was Israel can do no wrong, and we continue to do, their bidding for them. And Vance said, no, Trump has actually called Israel out on multiple things and held them accountable to do certain things that nobody else has done before. And so if it's in the best interest of the United States, we will help them. If it's not, then we won't. Thought that was a pretty good answer. He debunked this Palantir lie as well. Peter Thiel, Palantir, this mass surveillance AI potential danger that's going on with them and other companies, and he called it out. He said, no, they should not be able to surveil citizens. I'm really concerned about this. And basically, at least by the way that he stated it last night, there's no, he's not in bed with Peter Thiel, even though Peter Thiel might like that. He clarified that he's raising his kids as Christians. I didn't realize his wife is not Catholic. She is, I guess, Hindu. And he said that despair is a sin. We should not despair. Pretty interesting. You have an elected official up there willing to answer these questions, unscripted, tons of accessibility to him, but also he was proclaiming the power of God, the supremacy of Christ. Pretty incredible. And actually saying, well, we're going to get to one of these clips here, actually. Let me not get ahead of myself. Andrew Colvett, who is with Turning Point, described it like this. JD Vance just stood on stage for over an hour taking unscreened questions from students on abortion, Israel, immigration, and Christianity in front of 10,000 people and millions more watching at home. Politicians don't do that. It's too risky, especially for the vice president of the United States. But he did it anyway to honor Charlie. He was transparent, honest, and authoritative, a complete masterclass. Here he was being asked about immigration. This gal asked a ton of questions, and he was still nice to her, made a little joke here. But this is how he answered.
Pushing out policies that hurt us, and these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world. It's to look out for the people of the United States. Now.
All right, so people loved that answer without a question. And this gal was raising her hand while he's trying to answer the question. And let me tell you, she asked like 6 questions, all at once. And he was kind, understanding, and respectful. And she actually came away looking like she agreed with a lot of things that he said. So I don't know if he won her over, but she had this idea that people that are coming here legally are that are in the process. She, I think, indicated that she has some kind of process going on to, obtain a visa or has a visa and wants citizenship, and basically implied that, anybody doing that's being stopped and going to be sent back. And that's not correct. And so she seemed to, I don't know if she was trying to do a gotcha or what she was doing, but hopefully he dispelled that. Here is Vance talking about the to despair is a sin. Take a look.
Agnostic days, and I was thinking about returning to my faith. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and actually talking about a number of things, and he said something to me that was really interesting. And I was talking about all the things that were going wrong. I was looking to the future. I was talking about everything that was broken in the world, and I said to him, I said, things are just really, really dark. And he said, and he stopped me in my tracks. He said, JD, you're right. There are a lot of things that are really dark out there, but despair is a sin. Now, I know not all of you are Christians, but for the Christians out there, I think that it is very important to remember that despair is actually a sin. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to criticize. It's okay to think that things aren't going well with a particular issue, but we are called to never give up hope. But I think one of the critical lessons of Charlie Kirk's life, to his dying breath, this was a man who never lost hope in his creator and never lost hope in the United States of America. So let's remember that and carry that forward as a way to remember.
All right. So that was part of the clip there from last night's speech, not to despair. Let's see here. All right. So we already played that clip. This was an interesting one. This is a subject I've been researching quite a bit lately. And this is, separation of church and state. This is, the phrase Christian nationalism is thrown around a lot. Charlie Kirk sort of criticized as a Christian nationalist. I mean, the first thing you do if somebody does that is ask them to define what a Christian nationalist is. Okay, that's the first thing you need to do if you encounter somebody, because it is very different depending on who you ask. But anyway, take a look at this clip.
Let's make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page here. So if you go back to the First Amendment, it doesn't say separation of church and state. It says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. But if you go back to the founding time, there were actually a number of states that had formally recognized churches. So there was the Anglican Church of Virginia. That was the official state church of Virginia. Maryland at the time was the only majority Catholic colony, or at least had a significant Catholic representation of the original 13 colonies. There's a lot there. And yes, I do think that what happened is the Supreme Court interpreted Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion to effectively throw the church out of every public space at the federal, state, and local level. I think it was a terrible mistake, and we're still paying for the consequences of it today. But if, and I think this is your point, if you were to undo that, if you were to get back to a system actually meant by the founders where Congress is not setting up an established religion, but people in their local communities can kind of do whatever it is that they want to do, I think that would be a better system than what we have today. But I think the most important principle that we have got to remember is you do not have to completely kick God out of the public square, which is what we've done in modern America. It's not what the founders wanted. It's not good for the United States of America. And anybody who tells you it's required by the Constitution is lying to you. Thank you.
All right. So people, you start to talk about this and people get uncomfortable. What are you talking about? Well, when you look at the these state constitutions before the Declaration of Independence and some, certainly before the Constitution, you had many of these states that referenced Christianity and the like, right? Allegiance to, an oath to, respect of, or just declaring themselves, a Christian state, basically. Not in the sense of a theocracy or a caliphate, a required, religion, but saying we acknowledge God, we acknowledge Jesus Christ, and we are endeavoring to have a government that honors him. You don't have to be a Christian, but the values, the morals, the laws that we're going to have on the books are going to reflect things like the 10 Commandments, which is basic. I mean, it's basic decency, right? Well, where did it come from? It came from God. You start asking people, well, do you think murder's wrong? Yes. Why? Well, just because, you're not supposed to murder. But why? Why aren't you supposed to? Not every society believes that. Well, it's because it came from God. So much of our society's foundational beliefs came from God. People don't maybe realize that or acknowledge it, but we assume, well, this is just right and wrong and, whatever. Well, it's right and wrong according to God. So the laws in this state or community are going to reflect those types of things. You don't have to believe in Jesus Christ. You don't even have to believe in God. But as far as the order and the foundation that we are setting this government up on, it is those statutes that come from the Bible, and that's how we're going to do it. How far that goes, I don't know. So, some have said, well, make it illegal for businesses to be open on Sunday. Respect the Sabbath. Where's the line? Well, you can't get gasoline on Sunday, or you can't go to a restaurant. What? Oh no. It used to be that way, where on Sunday, hey, everything was shut down. Now, where exactly that would land, I don't know, but to this, basically not establishing a national religion, but not removing God from the public square, like J.D. Vance said, and respecting those statutes, those moral standards from God and not being afraid to acknowledge it. And so that's what we were founded on. Well, no, not all of the founders were Christians. A lot of them were. And certainly a lot of the states were. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, this experiment only works with a moral people. And so it's not trying to convert everybody, but it's acknowledging God and not removing him from the reason that we do certain things a certain way. Christianity doesn't advocate killing people that don't believe what they believe. They respect people's freedom to believe what they want to believe. And in fact, I'm just going to tell you, even though a lot of churches don't act this way, you can't make somebody believe in God, believe in Jesus Christ. You can't make them do it. It has to be an act of their own free agency. You can't make any, Christians, if they truly believe the Bible, know that you cannot make someone be a Christian. And so any kind of law or anything like that would be absurd. It would be contrary to the faith. So I'm not advocating for that. But I am saying we need to quit being embarrassed or shrinking back or wanting to remove, acknowledgement of God and those biblical standards as part of how we govern our society. And okay, so Congress doesn't make a law, but what about at your state level? What if you could go advocate or send letters or have conversations with lawmakers about it? Or maybe your local community. Hey, why don't we institute a moment of prayer every Thursday at noon here? I mean, there's just a bunch of different things you can do to continually acknowledge that the virtues we're trying to instill is a moral people. Again, you can't legislate morality. I know that. But you can certainly open the door for immorality. And so why not do what you can from a responsibility standpoint? Does that make me a Christian nationalist? That's what a lot of people on the left would say. No, I just want to reverse this trend where we don't acknowledge God in our government. Like that's taboo. Because what's happened is the Marxism that has infiltrated our country for decades wants to remove any sign of God whatsoever in our government, in our culture. That's really what's at play. Well, why? Because if we are a moral, virtuous people that believe in God, we are less likely to be controlled. If we worship God, our allegiance is to him. It is to Jesus Christ. If you ask us or try to make us do something that's contrary to those beliefs, we will rebel. You cannot control us. But you remove God, you remove a moral, virtuous people that worship God, and instead have to rely on the government for their source of happiness and prosperity, and they have ultimate control. You cannot control a morally religious people from a government standpoint. Now, you can say, well, there's plenty of cults out there, and some of them are, claim to be Christian. I agree with you. But that's why Marxism wants to get God completely out of our government, out of our culture, because we cannot be controlled. Sounds like tin hat stuff. It's historically accurate. But don't take my word for it. Go do the research yourself. But that is why I'm saying we need to reverse the trend. And I think J.D. Vance absolutely is of that same mindset of, no. It isn't, just give us, let us worship as we, freely choose. No, it's also acknowledging that this country was founded on biblical principles by a moral, virtuous people, not a perfect people. Oh, the founders had slave owners or were slave owners. Some of them were, but that was a lot of the world was slave owners. It was part of the culture at that time. But even before the states got together, most of the states did not want to continue slavery. So they sort of planted their flag with the Constitution. All men are created equal, but knew that they could never get this coalition of states to band together to declare the independence because the southern states' economy so greatly depended on slave labor. You got similar arguments being made by Democrats right now about illegal immigrants picking grapes. But the founders knew that, so they said, we'll have to fight another day on that. And they did. Now, I'm not saying, it was all okay, but it was very much part of the culture in some ways. But again, the percentage of people that owned slaves was low. Did you know there were black people that owned slaves? You probably didn't know that if you just listen to what they teach you at public school. So there's more to the issue. It's a horrible thing. No one should be another person's slave, ever. But unfortunately, it happened. But it's not unique to the United States. Like the founders were so bad, or the United States is so bad. It was happening all over the place, and the United States was one of the first countries to eliminate slavery. They don't get any. We don't get any credit for that. But that being said, it wasn't a perfect group of people, but they were acknowledging God, and we are commanded to acknowledge God. So I don't know about you, but I don't really want to be part of pushing for things that take God out of it, or that don't acknowledge God and don't try to uphold, biblical standards from the standpoint of just right and wrong. So anyway, I think it's time to stop saying, hey, just let us do what we want. No, it's like, no, but also we're going to acknowledge that where this special experiment and the success of this country came from, uniquely to this country, is from God. We enshrined in our Constitution that these rights, these unalienable rights, are endowed to us not by government, not by a king, but our Creator. And so I think we need to go on offense on this. If you really want to know a little bit, I think we should. And I think that's kind of what JD Vance is getting at. But of course, you hear this and it's, oh my gosh, you guys are crazy Christian nationalists. Okay, whatever. All right. Let me know what you think about in the chat, what we just talked about. Please give me your thoughts on it. If you're still thinking it over, or hey, whatever, or that's a horrible idea, let me know in the chat. Give us a thumbs up on whatever platform you're watching on, and repost, reshare this. Heart the post on X and repost, please. We need your help. Okay, another question that JD Vance fielded last night was in regard to Thomas Massie. Trump and Massie are not in a good place. And here's how Vance answered the question, because he said he and Thomas Massie are, good friends.
Independent, having your own opinions is one thing. Voting against the party on every single issue, you're eventually going to make too many enemies. And that is the problem that Thomas has had. It's not one issue. It's not 3 or 4 issues. It's that every time that we've needed Thomas for a vote, he has been completely unwilling to provide it. That is why the President of the United States has trained his ire on Thomas Massie. It's because we can never count on him for some of the most difficult votes. I wish that weren't the case. I say that as somebody who's known Thomas well before I got into politics, but politics is politics. And when you always vote against the party, you can't expect the party to actually back you. Independent.
Politics is politics, my friends. every single thing. Yeah, it gets old. And Massie put out a tweet last night. Well, when it comes to, not trafficking kids and not spinning our grandkids into oblivion, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I will always vote no on those things. Well, there's been some continued spending things and things like that he's just gone against, and it's been impractical. It's been, I get principle, and it's like, well, if you don't, you're watering down your principle. I get it. I want everyone to be as principled as they can be. JD Vance was asked about, abortion last night. And, the gal who is like the head of Rebels for Life, which is like the pro-life group there at Ole Miss, said that Vance had wavered on his stance on abortion. And he said, I don't believe I have. But he said, you have to operate within the political system. Unfortunately, that's just what you have to do. And so if they ran on, no abortions ever, anytime as a federal law, they wouldn't have won. And so this is a state's issue anyway, so it's a little bit of a moot point. But his personal view was, for the life of the mother, and for potentially in cases of rape, if it's someone of a certain age. So his standpoint was, I'm not wavering. I'm operating with inside the political system to be as effective as possible. And that can sound like, well, you're sort of compromising your principles. I understand that point of view. I do. And that's typically my default position on it is, no, you just have to do what is right no matter what. Unfortunately, though, we're in this political system that you have to make compromises to be effective. And so is it better for, Vance or Trump to come out and say no abortions anytime, anywhere, and we need to make a federal law about it and not get elected and not do all the other great things? I hate abortion. I don't want it happening. I mean, the life of the mother thing, I think, is really kind of a joke. Pretty much 99.999999% of the time, because you can typically always save, the mother by a C-section or something else. Not every case, but it is so rare. So rare. But because it's so rare, okay. Did you know that it's already part of medical procedure to save the mother already? Like that already exists. You talk about the rape thing. Okay, you want an exception for rape, but I mean, what if people start saying I was raped when they weren't? Now, again, that's going to be a small percentage, and I'd say, okay, fine. If that's the deal breaker, then put that in there, because it's going to be such a small number. Put some more parameters on it. If they're under 18, okay. Or I'll do you one better. We'll do an exception for rape and then make rape punishable by death. How about that? We'll do the death penalty for rape. I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it while still not allowing what I would almost call it a straw man argument to divert from the main issue. Am I rambling? Am I just talking in circles here? Does any of this make sense? The point that Vance was making is there are certain things I want personally, but in order to be able to be effective for 90% of what I'm trying to get done, I still have to operate within the parameters of the political world. It's politics. It's messy, it's unfortunate, and it's nasty, and it's not ideal, which is why it's not for everyone. But at some point, you've got to get some things done. So what do you do? So I think that's kind of a practical approach to how it's done. You don't have to agree to it, but I can respect the the strategy there. All right, moving on from JD Vance, Gavin Newsom. I can't tell you how much of a fan my son is of Charlie when he was on when he had Charlie on his podcast, but then he said something different when he was on CNN. Take a look at the clip with him and Charlie first.
Last night, trying to put my son to bed. He's like, "No, Dad. What time? What time's Charlie gonna be here? What time?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're in school tomorrow." He's 13. He's like, "No. This morning, wakes up at 6 something." He's like, "I'm coming." I'm like, Craig, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is,
you canceled school for like 2 years. Once one day.
The point is the point.
That was a great line.
Which is, you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you shut down schools for 2 years during COVID. What's another day? You know, he says I'm kidding, but you know, it threw Newsom for a loop. The point is the point. PowerPoint. All right, so basically saying my son.
That's your son.
My son, you know, thinks you're great, Charlie. Well, then that was before Charlie died, and then now here's what he says.
That's your son. Yeah. Obviously a fan of. What was the conversation like between you and your son after Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
Well, he called me. I don't know how he got a phone, but he called me from school that day, really alarmed. And all his friends were around the phone that wanted me to somehow express or understand what was going on. He wanted to know if he was dead. He wasn't a fan of him as much as he was familiar with him.
Oh, okay. So he's just familiar with him and wanted to be off school that day. I mean, he's backpedaling, wanting to distance from Charlie Kirk. What a disgusting human being. The guy was tragically murdered, but some of his views were polarizing to the left. And now I have to, use my hands, and not so much a fan, but he knew him, right? Bree in the chat says, shocker, Newsom changed his story. I'm telling you, this guy scares me because he is such a good liar. He is a sociopathic human. He got a bunch of crap the last few days for coming out and acting like he was poor growing up, and all these pictures are showing of him dressed really nice and all these fancy situations. I mean, what is it with the liberals? And it's even infiltrated into the right, that this victim mentality is somehow endearing. Even if you were a victim, even if you did come up from nothing, why don't you celebrate where you are now? I understand where you come from matters, but it shouldn't be the definition of who you are. I overcame those things, and now blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. But trying to communicate that you're some kind of victim, I just didn't have it, like that's something to celebrate. No, I don't want to celebrate people who had it rough starting out. I want to celebrate the people who have achieved and are successful now. I want to celebrate the surviving, the overcoming. Not sit here and coddle this fake oppression. I mean, the Democrats love to create and endear themselves to oppressed people. That's sort of their currency. That's what they do with these freaking illegal immigrants and other criminals. They side with them to try to make these people oppressed when they're not, rather than siding with the victims of their crimes. It may have worked for some period of time, maybe with minorities and others, but they're trying to make an oppressed group out of the trans people and the illegal immigrants and the criminals, and it's just not working. But Newsom trying to identify as some poor minority in the hood with no shoes on or something is ludicrous and absurd. And I reject the environment that we have in our country to where we want to be happy for someone for being poor growing up. I'm sad for you about that. And I don't think you should dwell on it. I think you should move beyond it, because that's not what defines you. And, this is so much of what the Democrats say about equity. We didn't all start in the same place, but we need to end up in the same place. I'm sorry, that's just not life. That's just not life. That's not how it works. And to peddle that is to perpetuate a lie. But I want to sit here and celebrate how poor you were when you were born. I want to look at how's your life now? What are you doing right now to make a difference in your life, others' lives? What are you doing to give back to the world? What are you producing versus what are you consuming? That's the shift. Basically, it's anybody from any background, anywhere, can be anything they want if they work hard enough. That might be a little bit far-reaching. Can you be anything you want? A person born without an arm, may not be able to, I don't know. A person born without arms probably, can't, is not going to be someone that's going to be good at, cutting down tree limbs. Okay? So there are exceptions to that. But in other words, you can get farther than you ever could have imagined when you started out if you work hard. I believe that that's what our country affords. It doesn't mean it's easy, and it's not guaranteed, and it may not work out the way you wanted it to, but if you are born in a certain situation that you find is not ideal or is oppressive, you have the power, the ability, and the availability to at least get out of that. You may not be a billionaire if that's what you're wanting, or you may not have 12 kids and a loving husband, or you may not have everything you possibly desire. I'm not here to tell you that, but you absolutely have every opportunity to not stay stuck where you were when you were brought into this world. I can say that definitively. And so let's get beyond celebrating or sympathizing with some. Yeah, okay, sorry you had it tough growing up. A lot of people can say that. And no matter how tough you had it, somebody else had it worse. It's, I don't know about you, but none of us can control when or who we were born, the family we were born into. None of us have that kind of control. I look at it as a lot of people say, it's an excuse. It's an excuse. Get beyond it. Look forward, don't look back. Your past does not have to define you. Look forward. That's the kind of mindset I think we need to be cultivating in this country, is look forward. Whatever happened in the past doesn't have to define you. Where you started is not where you're going to end up, so long as you work hard. And yeah, some breaks along the way, some people taking a chance on you. Those are all things that can amplify your journey in a major way. But this culture of let me get people to feel sorry for me, I think is ridiculous. I think it's cancerous. And that's what Newsom trying to do by pretending to be poor when he wasn't even, basically identifying as poor when he wasn't. Speaking of people who identify as a certain way and they're not, just to get political points, Kamala Harris. She recently sat down with an Australian outlet and was asked about Joe Biden finally.
Wasn't his refusal to recognize his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president, and Donald Trump ran on a platform that was in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people. I do believe that there are a fair number of people that voted for Donald Trump who believed him when he told them that his first priority on day one is going to be to bring down prices. And he didn't. And you combine that misrepresentation of intention with also what was at play in terms of massive amounts of mis and disinformation.
Now, forgive me.
And a truncated calendar in terms of the clock.
I want to interrupt you because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you.
A world-class pivot. Finally, I mean, nobody said this to her during the campaign at all, when she would totally avoid the question and just spew blah, 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 blah. But she's called out on her world-class pivot here.
Which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognize his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticize the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went
What
on.
exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognize his own frailties in that position, that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as president of the United States.
Really? You're still gonna go with that?
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be president of the United States, and I have never doubted that he had the capacity to be president of the United States. If you want to talk about whether he had the ability to endure what a race for president of the United States would require in that political environment in 2024, as I've said in the book, I had concerns.
I'm just wondering, is there a reason why you won't go to that prolonged frailty question? Well, we saw the debate, we saw the difficulty he had marshalling his thoughts.
I have answered that question. I do not believe
I think it's just hard watching the debate to see how there could not be a problem long term with someone who can't marshal their thoughts. I'm not saying his acuity wasn't present.
I talked about that in the book. And I also mentioned the context in which that debate occurred. And you'll probably remember how I talked about that in terms of what his travel schedule had been, that what he had been enduring in terms of the timing of that debate. I talk about it extensively in the book. I'm not shying away from that. That's why I wrote it in the book, because I do know it's a question people had.
Yet you're acting like it is so inappropriate for her to ask you, and then rather than answering, she directs people back to her book. Either this is a brilliant marketing strategy, or she doesn't really remember what she's supposed to say in the carefully managed manner in which her handlers advised her. Bree said back in the campaign, somebody would stop her from her word salads. Not the case anymore. Yeah, that's what we call a pivot over here, down under. All right, she's doing some other interviews. Kamala Harris, I mean, thank God he spared us from this person being president. But asked about Biden calling her before the debate, basically she says Biden made it all about him. So Kamala is, she's definitely bucking the system. I mean, to me, Biden was pretty dadgum generous to her in a lot of ways. You know, he endorsed Kamala even when Barack hadn't, because I think he was actually trying to sabotage. But it was still a gift to her, and she ruined it. But she is definitely going against the Democrat machine right now. We'll see how this ends up for her. But anyway, take a look at how she answered.
I'm in the hotel room with Doug, with my husband, and the president calls. I was told that he wanted to call me so that I'd be ready, and I was so sure it was to buck me up and go get him. And he did say that for the first beat. And then he went on to talk about a group of people in Pennsylvania who were saying bad things about me.
She basically says, I thought he was calling to give me a pep talk, but instead it was more like, Pepto-Bismol, or something like that. Because, well, let's continue.
Because they heard I was saying bad things about him. And when I hung up the phone, it was unbelievable. And I was angry and deeply disappointed. It was so unnecessary. There are only two people in the world other than me that has debated this guy, Hillary Clinton and him.
So basically, Biden called her to say, go get him, kid. And, I heard you're saying bad things about me to some people in Pennsylvania. That made her very mad, as she's about to tell you.
And you know what it's like. It's going into a debate with the stakes being that high, and Trump hadn't agreed to another debate. The stakes were so high. So that's an example of what I mean.
You took something from that. You took an underlying message about one's intentions from that, because I would. If someone called me in the lead up to debate prep and said something like that to me, I would assume that they don't want the best for me.
My takeaway is his motivation was all about himself.
That's what I would assume from that.
Yeah.
I would assume that.
Yeah, right. Obviously, right. Yeah. It wasn't about my performance at the debate.
Yikes. Okay. Well, we'll see the fallout from that one. It's all about Joe Biden. Okay. Final clip of Kamala. Here's what she was going through the night of the election. She was in shock, like she was, in grieving, like she was when her mother died.
I was in a state of shock.
Really? Did you think the day before that you were going to win the election?
I did.
Yeah. And so when did the proverbial penny drop?
When I got a call from my campaign manager that it looks like we need 200,000 more votes that we can't find. Meaning it's just the map, the numbers. And the thing I kept saying over and over again, I was in a state of shock. I was so inarticulate, but maybe very articulate. What I kept saying over and over again is, my God, my God, my God.
Really?
Over and over. I couldn't stop. I haven't felt that emotion, anything similar to the emotion I felt that day and for quite some time, other than the grief I felt when my mother died. I knew what was going to happen to our country. I knew the harm that was going to happen to people. And I knew it. I knew what was going to happen.
Wow. So while President Trump is celebrating, she's somewhere in some room saying, my God, my God, my God, and she cannot stop saying
I was in a
it.
state of shock.
Really?
I mean, if you would have paid attention to any of the numbers, you would have known, right? You would have known you're probably not going to win. Now, I get you, election night, anything can happen, but to be shocked that you didn't win, that's kind of weird. Be mad about it, upset about it. To be shocked, though, that means like, I don't know. I don't know anybody that goes into an election that's, competitive at all that assumes they're going to win. Because anybody who's done it before recognizes, hey, anything can happen. I feel good about it, but I don't know. All right. This is what the Democrat strategy is right now in the Senate. Chuck Schumer, who has now resorted to dropping nasty words in produced videos about President Trump. I mean, this is the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer. We're in the middle of this shutdown. A bunch of people that probably shouldn't be getting free benefits are about to go hungry or at least have a fast. Some of these people do need to lay off food for about a week or two or three. But in the middle of this, this is the strategy. Now, there's some profanity in here, but this is what he posted. This wasn't an off-the-cuff response to a question like maybe President Trump has had a few times or ad-libbing during a long speech. This is literally someone who intentionally produced a video so they could drop the F-bomb about President Trump. Take a look.
On Saturday, for the first time in American history, a vicious, heartless president is cutting off food stamps to hungry children, elderly who can't afford enough food to feed themselves, veterans who are down on their luck, all because he wants to use them as hostages so that Democrats will stop fighting for people's health care. We can do both, provide better health care and provide SNAP benefits to the tens of millions who need it. This president is a fucking liar. He says there's no money to provide food stamps because of the shutdown. That's bullshit. His own agriculture department said there's plenty of money. Every president during shutdowns has provided the money that's needed, even Trump in his first term. He is bludgeoning the American people, using the most innocent of victims to try and go along with his cruel shutdown.
I want you to take note of what he's doing with his arms. It's literally like he's, milking two cows or something else. This is the hand gesture he continues to go with.
Which takes away health care from millions of Americans. He is the most vindictive politician America has ever seen, and the most heartless man America has ever seen.
The most heartless man.
We're fighting him every step of the way.
Literally, Donald Trump is an effing... What did he say? Donald Trump is an effing liar. Like, what a weird movement anyway. Like, I'm going to stand here. I'm going to tell you things. And I'm going to emphasize with my fists in this shape over and over and over, milking a cow. Donald Trump is a effing liar. What is wrong with this dude? Why would you think this would play well? This is where we're at in the political discourse, my friends. It's like Donald Trump has these organic moments where, whether you like it or not, he drops a bomb. And it's organic, part of his personality. Well, then they're like, oh, everybody liked it when Trump said this, so we're going to go manufacture opportunities to, lace videos with profanity that aren't really relevant to or justified in using profanity in that situation, compared to something that maybe is more organic. Okay. But literally, that's what they're trying to do. They're just basically, we'll try to copy Trump, and it just comes across as so disingenuous and inauthentic, if you will. All right, you've got another Democrat out there. Well, now she's an independent, right? Corinne Jean-Pierre. She's out there doing this media tour for her book that's not selling, and boy, does she look bad. And she makes sure to tell everyone she's black and not trans, queer, whatever, lesbian, I don't know, whatever she is. She, makes it a point to say it at the very beginning of every one of these interviews. But Politico, typically a very friendly outlet to the left, is lambasting her with some brutal quotes on this book tour. A car crash is fascinating to watch. She was the top communicator for the president of the United States, and she can't get through basic interviews. Another one. Every time she falls back on identity politics instead of actually answering questions, she reinforces the worst stereotype about Democrats. Another one. It's like watching Mike Tyson fight a baby. It's like watching a toddler jump into the deep end of the pool. She doesn't seem to have any idea what she's arguing, and on and on and on. And the headline, Corinne Jean-Pierre's book tour is nonstop cringe. Her former colleagues can't look away. Yeah, so that's not playing well. Who are these people? I mean, what are they actually like in real life? All right, let's talk about this Arctic frost investigation. Make sure you heart the post and repost on X. Give us a thumbs up and repost if you're watching on Rumble. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, etc. If you want to help us out to pay for the hard cost to bring you this content, you can do so with a $5, $10, $20 contribution via Cash App. And you can do that at our website, where we have the unique links set up for you for Cash App or Venmo. And that website is IkeReport.com. IkeReport.com if you want to support what we're doing, or you can contribute directly in the chat on Rumble. Keep your comments coming on the things that we are talking about. David Sling is in the chat, says Chuck Schumer inciting violence there. Indeed. All right. Yeah. Keep the chat coming. A little quiet in the chat. Let's get a little louder in the chat. Why don't we? Okay. Arctic frost. That is basically the investigation they used when, raiding Mar-a-Lago and all these other things and spying on a ton of people on the right. Sean Davis points out, federal sources confirmed to the Federalist that Biden's DOJ deliberately chose the name Arctic frost rather than follow the customary procedure of using a randomly generated name from agency computers, rather. Why? Why'd they pick Arctic frost? Well, because Arctic frost is also a type of orange tree cultivar, I don't know what that is, that can withstand cold temperatures. The name itself proves the entire corrupt operation was designed from the beginning to take down the bad orange man and his Florida estate. It turns out that Donald Trump can withstand filthy beltway blight just as well as he can handle the cold. So it was almost like aptly named. Arctic frost, something orangish that can survive, these cold temperatures. But look at this. You've got Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, Jack Smith, and Christopher Wray that were the architects spying on Donald Trump, 9 members of Congress, 92 Republican organizations and individuals, 197 subpoenas for 430 plus Republican entities and individuals. And these weren't things that were known to these people. As it relates to this surveillance, Ted Cruz is now calling on the impeachment of Judge Boasberg for granting many of these secret spy warrants.
I am right now calling on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg put his robe down, stood up and said, sign me up to be part of the partisan vendetta against 20% of the Republicans in the Senate. That is a dereliction of duty and a violation of the judicial oath. And I want to thank Chairman Grassley and Chairman Johnson for pursuing this tenaciously like a dog on a bone. We are going to get the answers of every person who signed off on this abuse of power. And mark my words, there will be accountability for these zealots who wanted to corrupt the Department of Justice and corrupt the judiciary in order to try to attack their enemies list.
Yeah, these people are ruthless. They're treasonous. They're traitors. They have no conscience. And Boasberg granted, these warrants for spying on Ted Cruz and getting all these cell phone records without, any of them knowing. As I said, this makes Whitewater, the biggest scandal, and the guy, they got Nixon out. I'm not a crook. It makes Watergate look like freaking Sesame Street. I mean, this is so nasty, and it is such a disastrous weaponizing of our, the resources of our government and DOJ. I mean, it is such an abuse of power. It's not even debatable. All right, what else we got on this Arctic frost? Judge Boasberg, this is Ted Cruz again, ordered that I not be informed that my cell phone records have been subpoenaed because he believed that I'd tamper with evidence or intimidate witnesses. This is complete abuse of judicial power, and Boasberg should be impeached. This is Senator Grassley talking about it. We'll see how much we can take because this guy, his voice is failing a bit.
Includes a hard line for Senator Cruz's office and a staffer's cell phone for former Senator Loeffler.
So they tried to subpoena Verizon to tap the office phone in your office?
Well, to get the phone records, and they also subpoenaed AT&T to get my cell phone records. And I'll tell you, AT&T did the right thing. They refused to comply with the subpoena. Their legal counsel concluded that it was protected by the speech and debate clause of the Constitution. But one of the things that is amazing, along with that subpoena they sent to AT&T, they also included an order from Judge Boasberg, who's one of these left-wing radical judges who's issuing nationwide injunctions. Judge Boasberg ordered AT&T, do not tell Cruz we are subpoenaing his cell phone records. Why? And he makes a conclusion. He says, because I conclude if he's informed, Cruz will destroy or tamper with evidence and intimidate witnesses. That is utterly without factual basis. It is a complete abuse of judicial power. And I've called on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. The Constitution, when Judge Boasberg decided to become a partisan warrior and be part of the most egregious abuse of power, this is Joe Biden's Watergate. And I believe the House should impeach Judge Boasberg. And I also think we are going to get to the bottom of every partisan who signed off on surveilling and spying on 20% of the Republicans in the Senate. That's what Joe Biden and their DOJ did.
It's wild. These judges. Senator Ted Cruz, good to see you. Thanks so much.
All right. So this is a conspiracy. I mean, all of these cases against Trump, you look at now and say, man, this was all, I mean, this was coordinated. This was coordinated between all these people, because you look at how the prosecution in these various states went to the White House to meet with White House attorneys. Like they were orchestrating this thing. And I think, I firmly, believe that's why Joe Biden sort of had the slip up when he said, when they asked him, if Trump runs in 2024, how are you going to defeat him? And he said, we're going to use the Constitution. Wait, what? That was always their plan. We'll try to go after him with lawfare. I mean, it's the same playbook from the Crossfire Hurricane, Russia collusion hoax. Basically, it's we will spy, even though we don't have anything, but we will spy. We will get, the access to surveil, through warrants without probable cause. We will spy on them. We don't have anything on them, but we will surveil him enough to, get something to stick. And they didn't. And so, I mean, it's you want to know why you have to have accountability on something like this? Because people go, we need to look forward. I mean, that's what the Democrats are trying to say. No, it's time to look forward. Oh, you've never looked back, huh? We gotta move forward. What does Joe Biden have to do this? Well, if you don't hold people accountable, it's just going to continue to happen again and again and again. And we've already seen this is a repeated offense. Crossfire Hurricane, now Arctic Frost, which makes Crossfire Hurricane actually look pretty tame. Literally, this is just purely political in nature. And not only those members of, Congress, but also organizations like Turning Point USA. Declassified FBI operation, Arctic Frost document that confirms they targeted the COO of Turning Point USA. COO, so whether that was I guess it wasn't specifically Charlie Kirk, was it? He was CEO, right? But look, I mean, there are other people on here too. I mean, these various different Republican committee chairs and stuff like that all over the country. This is utterly absurd. I mean, we've got, the following members of Congress, Senator that were spied on: Senator Lindsey Graham, Bill Hagerty, Josh Hawley, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, Ron Johnson, Cynthia Loomis, Marsha Blackburn, and Mike Kelly. This is insane. This is insane. They were literally spying on these elected officials in this coordinated effort. I mean, the documents are out there at grassley.senate.gov. I mean, there's just pages after pages after pages after pages of this as part of this investigation. Man, when you think about all they were doing in this and the fact that they couldn't get it to stick, and then the fact that President Trump was reelected, no wonder. I mean, you got to be thinking these people have been totally mortified, totally scared. So you mess around, you're about to find out, right? Bree says, these people will literally stop at nothing. Our country is in major trouble. David Singh says, they targeted one of the companies I have stock in. Bree says that judge should be impeached immediately. This Arctic frost thing is one of the most disgusting things ever. I don't even know how people can stay on the left with everything that they've done. That is a perplexing question, is it not? All right, so we're talking about the shutdown. So, I mean, there's a lot of, in that Arctic frost that I think is going to continue to be part of the conversation. Moving on now to the shutdown. You got all these accusations being thrown around from the left versus the right. Whose fault is it? Well, Mike Johnson took the opportunity to show everybody a handy scorecard on what and how often Democrats have voted no when it comes to keeping the government open.
Democrats are still out trying to convince you that this is somehow Republicans' fault. But the facts are the facts, and the American people can see that very clearly. They see the truth. We brought you a handy scorecard here so you can, follow the votes. I mean, this is very simple. The votes to pay the troops and federal workers and continue SNAP benefits and get air traffic controllers and Border Patrol agents paid. This is the vote tally. You see the dates here. The House did our work back on September 19th, and Republicans voted yes. Democrats voted no on all those things. And the Senate has now done it an additional 13 times. These are the votes. No one can say that this is in any way the fault of Republicans. We have a clean, simple bill, and everybody knows it. House and Senate Democrats are openly admitting that this is their shutdown. You have seen the highlight reel of all of them stumbling into admitting that. And yet they're also incoherently claiming that the shutdown is somehow on the fault of the other party. And the people aren't buying it. And that's why the polling continues to show that the approval of Republicans in Congress is rising with each passing day. And the Democrats, at the same time, Democrats in Congress have the lowest approval rating they have ever had since polling began, since recorded polling began on these metrics.
All right. So, yeah, it's doesn't look so good when you put up a handy chart like that, does it? Well, this leftist liberal loser lady has bad news for MAGA men. When SNAP benefits go away, the single moms who need food are not going to be choosing the dudes. They're going to be choosing other women, but not in a gay way. Okay, not in a gay way. Basically, she says that men will be sort of predatory right now, looking for women who are hungry, but the women aren't going to choose those dudes. They're going to choose other women. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life, but take a look. Boy, and she's a looker too. I mean, look at that hair. Look at those glasses. I don't know quite what she's wearing there.
I'm wondering, do MAGA men think that because WIC and SNAP benefits are going away November 1st, that this is going to open up the pool of women that they can date? Because they're going to say, oh, single mom, she's already proven to be a breeder, and she's going to be broken, not able to feed her kids. What can I get away with? What can I do to her just so she can feed her kids? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. They're going to be so disappointed. And because women have chosen the bear, and the next step in that is women choosing women, not in a gay way, but to live together and care for each other.
Is this what she's hoping is going to happen? It seems like awfully specific forecasting here. These women are hungry. They're not going to choose these dudes. They're going to choose other women, but not in a gay way. Okay. Don't make it gay. What is she talking about? Okay. Well, I don't know how many bath salts she's ingested, but something's clearly not clicking correctly. When you talk about the kind of people that are on the SNAP program, basically free food, right? Food stamps, as they used to be called. They are usually not fit. Okay. I mean, that's why, what's his face wrote that song, right? 5'3", 300 pounds. Taxes ought not to pay for your bag of fudge rounds. And right. I mean, I would like to know how many people are, that are on SNAP have diabetes. The kind that, not the hereditary kind or whatever. I don't remember which it is, type 1, type 2, but the kind you can make go away with better diet. I would like to know how many people that are getting SNAP benefits are, self-imposed diabetics. A woman who works for an American school district says she will starve without these SNAP benefits. If it wasn't for SNAP, I wouldn't be able to feed my children or myself. Take a look at her there. Yeah. She's getting a lot of SNAP benefits, I think, here. Here she is saying why it's important that she doesn't go another moment without being able to eat.
Employee of the school district, I only get paid once a month. By the time I get my bills paid, I have nothing left to pay for food and other basic needs. If it wasn't for SNAP benefits, I wouldn't be able to feed my children or myself. I work, pay my bills, and like every other mom, I want to be sure that I have enough food to put on the table. Employee of the school district, I only get paid once a month.
Okay. So as Rob Schmidt points out here, it's bizarre to see 400-pound people collecting food stamps and claiming they're going to starve. What planet are we on? Right? Now, Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew, look at this as far as numbers go when as it pertains to SNAP. The average female who gets no free food from the government, the average female who's not on SNAP, how do they know this? Is this like a chat GPT question? This is pretty interesting if this is true. The average woman who's not on SNAP in America weighs 146 pounds. Okay, average woman not on SNAP. But the average SNAP recipient female is 211 pounds. I don't know why they're just talking about the ladies here, but basically the statistics would imply that SNAP benefits make you fatter.
I was reading that SNAP's going to run out, and 40 million people are going to go.
40 million.
40 million. Okay, listen to me, everybody. This whole thing of like 40 million people are going to go hungry. First off, those 40 million people average an extra 40 pounds on them over the average working American. If you took the average person that's on SNAP getting free food and the average person that gets no free food from the government, the average female who gets no free food from the government is 146 pounds. The average SNAP recipient is 211 pounds. So is it a food? I know. First off, we talk about going hungry. Nobody could benefit from a nice fast more than the SNAP recipient. I was reading.
So, yeah, I think that's probably true. Not for all of them, but it's got to be the vast majority of them. And yes, we know that there's a lot of fraud going on. Somebody has $1,000 in food on their card. They spend 500 of it. They have 500 left, and they go sell that for $300 to somebody who takes their card and gets $500 in groceries for $300. That's how it works. Person sells it because it's like, well, I mean, at the end of this month, it goes away. And so $300 cash is worth more to me than nothing. And the person that buys it says, oh, I can get a discount on my groceries at the expense of the taxpayer. And it happens over and over and over. If you've got enough money left over to sell, you are getting way too many benefits. I mean, how do you have I mean, the conscience to do this over and over and over and over. You have to have a mentality that I'm owed something for just who I am. I'm owed something. Yeah, I sell it because you know what? My ancestors were slaves, or something like what? The government has plenty of money. These rich people don't have to ever want for anything, so, I'm entitled to this. Well, what the Democrats have inadvertently done by not continuing the spending and keeping the government open, they've shown, a huge light on the SNAP program, which is not going to end up being good for people they want, on the government teat nonstop. All right. So it's not just plump gals that are on SNAP. We actually have an Iraqi refugee that's here that says, I can't stay here in the U.S. without getting these SNAP benefits.
Without the government support, I cannot stay maybe a month or 2 months.
Pima County Chairman Rex Scott told News for Tucson he's deeply concerned about the impact on local refugees.
Okay. So what are we supposed to do? So you look at the nationalities that are on SNAP, and it's all these other countries, people that are here on the SNAP program. Why is that okay? Now, I said this the other day, if somebody's fallen on hard times and this is a temporary thing, well, that's what it's intended to do. It's not, meant to be a lifelong thing for someone who's able-bodied. And if you talk about this refugee dude, he's a able-bodied male. If it's a male, they should be able to go out and produce enough to feed their family without government assistance, unless it's a temporary setback. Now, if it's a single mother whose maybe husband left her, or he was abusive and she left him, or, then I would say, okay, it's harder for a woman unless she is, a man can go out and work really hard labor and make good money. A woman can't do that. And a guy can do that without really a lot of experience or, being trained in that. That is a harder thing for women to do. To be thrown into a job where, without experience to where they can make enough money to feed their family. That's not the case for men. Able-bodied men, construction, and all these different, like, you can go out and earn enough money to feed your family. So I give, grant more leniency to females, but for anybody who's able-bodied, it should not be a forever thing. And even that female who has temporary hard times should be able to work her way up and out of it at some point. But it still shouldn't be this forever thing. But I have a lot less leniency, in my view, for men. Men should be able to do it. Again, if something happens temporarily for a period of time, 6 months, whatever it is, I'm not above that at all. I understand things happen. Tragedy happens. Don't hear me saying anybody who gets these benefits is a horrible person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a lot of people abusing it. There's a lot more people abusing it than who are legitimately taking advantage of it temporarily to get back on their feet. I mean, it should be a hand up and not a handout. But I have a lot less time frame understanding for especially able-bodied men. And I got to say, as a man, I want to do everything I possibly can to not have to rely on that. It's just the dignity, if you can avoid having to do that. And, I would much rather work myself to exhaustion every single day than have to take government benefits for my family to be able to eat. That's my mindset. And it doesn't mean it's possible for everybody. But that would be my mindset. I'm going to do anything I possibly can to have to avoid going down that route. I'd rather leave it for, a single mom or a widow or something when I have, the physical capability to go do that. I mean, that's my mindset. Apparently, other people don't have that mindset. I think a lot of people have my mindset. Like, I don't want to do that, and I will do everything I can to avoid it. But there's an alarming trend when it comes to this SNAP stuff, okay? Look how much it's increased, especially around 2020. I mean, you had the government giving out food for everything then. Everything. I mean, now, I will say, according to some, when kids weren't in school and were at home, some of them weren't eating because for some kids, the really only legit meal they get during the day is at school or maybe at breakfast at school. And the government subsidized a bunch of these lunches being available for kids during COVID, and even when schools weren't meeting or, in session. So I understand some of it, but to see this big of a spike happen, I mean, look at this. During the first Trump administration, and even, in part of Obama's, the amount of money that we spent per year, as far as billions, was decreasing. And in 2019 was at, one of the lowest levels in, over 10 years. Then in 2020 and 2021 and, even part of 2022, just spiking to, in 2020, late 2021, spiked to a record $140 plus billion a year in just SNAP benefits. Like that's a problem. If we have a entire nation of people that are dependent on the government to be able to eat, one, those people aren't producing and in the workforce and doing things and paying taxes. Two, you have a lot of people that will do whatever the government tells them to do because they're beholden to them to be able to eat. You don't, if somebody's able-bodied, you aren't helping them long-term by just giving them stuff. They never learn, they never establish the dignity or the accomplishment or the pride of an honest day's work. And I think it just leads to a degenerative mindset over time. It's not good for a long-term, healthy, strong nation. It's just not. All right. Trump is back from the trip to Asia. He got the Chinese President Xi Jinping to buy 12 million metric tons of American soybeans this season. And for the next 3 years, it's going to be 25 metric tons per year. Scott Bessent on with Maria Bartiromo this morning.
Is next week. And Maria, one of the big parts of this agreement, and I'm going to break the news here on your story, is the massive amount of agriculture purchases that the Chinese are going to be doing in this agreement. So the Chinese have agreed to buy 12 million metric tons of soybeans during this season, right now, between now and the should be January. And then for the next 3 years, they're going to be buying a minimum of 25 million metric tons per annum for the next 3 years. What I would expect is, as President Trump did in 2020, after President Xi had agreed to the phase one deal, he called him regularly and got him to buy more, and that number went up much higher.
All right. So already scoring some wins for farmers there. And so that's just one of the many great things that came out of that meeting. Trump also, agreed to cut back some of the tariffs on fentanyl and some other stuff. There was some, working out of deals there. Trump said, "Hey, everybody else is doing nuclear weapons testing, and so we're going to start doing it too." Then again, because if we want to, de-escalate, nuclearize, but Russia's not doing it, China's not doing it, so we're going to start testing again too. He posted that right before his meeting with Xi Jinping. Interesting, right? But in South Korea seals a massive trade pact with South Korea as far as $200 billion in investments, liquid natural gas buys, slash the tariffs, several things he accomplished there. Take a look.
Details of a trade agreement with South Korea following his meeting with the president there. And now our president says that he's confident he can strike a deal with Chinese leader Xi in their high-stakes meeting that will happen later tonight. Lucas Tomlinson on the road today in South Korea. Lucas, hello there.
Well, good morning, Bill. President Trump has arrived here in South Korea with all the pomp this country can muster, including fighter escorts, the red carpet. And just moments ago, President Trump announcing that the U.S. and South Korea have inked a $350 billion trade agreement. Of course, the United States is South Korea's second largest trading partner. And part of the pomp are some gifts. And check this out, Dana, President Trump receiving, in essence, the crown jewels, this crown and necklace, the highest award South Korea can muster. And President Trump is the first American to receive it. And Trump says the trade deal has been reached, and it'll be a grand total of some $20 trillion investment from around the world in the president's first term. Here's the president earlier.
I figure that will probably be at 20 or 21, maybe even $22 trillion of investments coming into our country by the end of the first year of my second term. And, we had a tremendously successful first term.
Now, here's the scorecard from Japan. Toyota to invest $10 billion in U.S. auto plants, $30 billion partnership with Mitsubishi, the U.S., Japan, and South Korea signing a new tech deal, a framework agreement with Japan on critical minerals reached. And we saw similar deals on rare earths in Malaysia with Cambodia. And Trump, that's what he did in Kuala Lumpur over the weekend, Bill. Now, President Trump, serenaded by South Korea's president, who visited the White House just a few months ago. Tomorrow is the high-stakes meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping on trade, fentanyl, and soybeans. Last year, China bought $13 billion worth of American soybeans. This year, $0, Bill.
All right. So obviously that meeting then happened after this. Trump changed that. And so we are going to be selling some soybeans. All right, let's talk about climate change, right? You got Bill Gates backpedaling, saying, actually, no, it's not, an existential threat to humanity. Donald Trump pushing this out. In parentheses, we just won the war on the climate change hoax. Bill Gates has finally admitted that he was completely wrong on the issue. It took courage to do so, and for that, we are grateful. MAGA. Looking at polling, the amount of people that are worried about climate change since polling on this was began, I guess, back, or at least the first benchmark is from all the way back in 1989, according to the CNN segment. Take a look.
Decades upon decades upon decades. And the worry in terms of climate change, simply put, hasn't shifted. It has not reached the majority of Americans. What are we talking about? Greatly worried about climate change. You go all the way back to 1989, it was 35%, 2000, 40%, 2020, 46%. And in 2025, look at that. It's 40%, the same number as we had 25 years ago back in 2000, and then only just 5 points higher than we had back in 1989. Really, we've just seen consistency on this issue. The bottom line is that the climate change message that folks who, of course, believe that climate change is real and is quite worrisome, simply put, has not really worked with the American people.
So greatly worried. You say greatly worried. I mean, so people say they're greatly worried, 40%, but how worried? Really? Is it the biggest thing they're worried about?
Yeah, it is not anywhere close to being the biggest thing that people are worried about. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk about top issue facing the U.S., climate change? Well, I got some numbers for you on the screen right here. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these numbers are not particularly high. Top issue facing the United States, climate change. It was 3% in 2021, 2% on average of polls in 2023. And this year, the average of polls 2. It is very, very low on the list of priorities. I was trying to count it on the Gallup poll, and basically it was so low down. I was counting all the different issues, almost lost track. It was like 15th or 20th. It was just very, very low down. So the bottom line is, not only are we seeing that the number has not really moved over the last 36 years, but in terms of being the top issue, it simply put has not broken through. 2%, there are just a ton of things that rank way higher on the list of importance.
Even I can count to 2. In terms of how people feel it will impact them directly, what are you saying?
Yeah, I'll just note 2 things. Number 1, your Harvard education paying off. But number 2, right here, look at this. Climate change effect on my home area will be harder to stay here. Look, in 2023, it was 23%. Look at where we are now. 17%. Now, these numbers are pretty comparable, but they're pretty comparable on the low side is what we're talking about here, is Americans simply put just don't think we'll have the type of impact that will really change their lives, which again goes back to the message that Bill Gates was saying, right? This is not something that's going to be devastating for humanity. It's something we can work our way out of. A lot of Americans agree. And even on this, we're talking about just 27% of Democrats who believe that climate change affecting my home area will be harder to stay here. So even on the left wing, where you'd expect the climate change message to hit most home, it simply put is not reaching that type of level in terms of the doomsday scenario.
Wow, what is happening? People are waking up. Oh, we have been deceived, right? You weren't deceived. I wasn't deceived. But some people out there have been deceived that this is some kind of legit threat. It's really just been a whole money laundering scheme. It's been a way to move money away from those in fossil fuels to the people that have been perpetuating the scare tactics and lies and fear-based hysteria to get rich on it. Look at the people that are involved in it. Look at Bill, what's his name? Mr. Internet. You know what I'm talking about? Gore, Al Gore, the ketchup air dude. You know that guy? Horseface McGee. No, what's his name? I can picture him. John Kerry. That's right. John Kerry. These people have done things that have enriched them all around this climate crap, and they're some of the chief mouthpieces for it. Now you even have Bill Gates coming out saying it's not real. Okay, so looks like this could be the next thing to be concerned about as it relates to incitement and chaos. Democrat activists are planning a takeover in Washington, D.C. They plan to surround the White House and Capitol building and Supreme Court with millions, they say millions of protesters who will refuse to leave. The guy that gives this talk says that Trump must go now. We cannot wait for election cycles. So what exactly are they proposing to do?
Washington, D.C., the largest sustained protest in Washington, D.C.'s history. This needs to be what happens right now. We're organizing millions of people to get to Washington, D.C., stand and surround the White House, surround the Capitol building, surround the illegitimately fascist passed Supreme Court, and not stop until the Trump regime is driven from power. We start on the 5th, we go to the 6th, we go to the 7th, we go to the 8th, we keep pushing every day, building and growing our numbers until masses of people are standing around the White House, around the Capitol building, around this fascistly packed Supreme Court until we drive the Trump fascist regime from power. Like I said, I'm with Carlos. We can't get washed away with trying to take on too much, trying to take on this and then that and then this, and trying to do everything all at once. We need to unify behind one simple demand. One simple demand is Trump must go now. Again, we cannot wait for election cycles, politicians, or the Supreme Court. We need to rise up into our millions right now, beginning on November 5th. Get to Washington, D.C. if you can. Come organize with us. We're chartering a plane to get as many people there as we can. If you can't organize with us,
they're chartering a plane to get as many people. I mean, it's going to take a lot of planes to get 1 million people there, but he's saying November 5th. Can't wait for election cycles. They're going to go to D.C. November 5th, and that's next week. So be on the lookout for that. I mean, there's so much vitriol and nastiness. They're so nasty on the left, including this liberal podcaster, Jennifer Welch. She suggests that the Democrat establishment needs to get on board with wanting conservatives dead, or else far leftists will come after the Democrats in the same way that they come after MAGA. This woman, tell me there's not a demon inside this lady. Tell me there's not.
This Zoran thing is happening just in New York, and you think people are waking up only in New York City, you're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to.
This is funny. I mean, the old hag that she said that to also laughed. How is this funny? How is it funny that people get killed for what they believe? These people are sick. And then Jennifer Welch, who apparently is a demon, also laughs.
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this shit, or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period. Stop taking AIPAC money. Go on an I'm sorry I took AIPAC money atonement tour if you want to stay in power. Stop missing out on these big rallies. Hakeem and Chuck should have been front and center introducing the next mayor of New York City, but no, they wouldn't show up because they're pussies. They're pussies that are beholden to the same corporations that helped Donald Trump get elected.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole clip. This woman is foul and laughing and advocating and inciting that people should be coming after those on the right and advocating that they're dead, that they're killed, that they're murdered. And anyone who doesn't get on board with that, well, they're going to get killed too, even people on the left. That's what she's implying with everything she just said. These people are demonic. I'm not seeing videos of even people on the right, even the worst people on the right, advocating for murder of people that don't agree with them. I mean, this is an accepted outcome, an accepted response, an accepted behavior on the left. It is not accepted on the right, despite what the liberal media tries to tell you. It's not. And as much as I think that little twerp Nick Fuentes is harmful to the truth, I would defend his right to free speech and would never advocate for any violence against this dude, even though I think he's evil as well. I think he's nasty, the stuff that he says and the accusations he makes. But, here's the thing that, I don't know why these big time whiner snowflakes out there don't understand this is no one is making you listen or watch anything. Unless you're in a prison cell and you have one channel and you're not allowed to turn the TV off, you can leave. You don't have to, you can play a video and realize you don't like it. You don't have to keep watching it if you don't like it. And you're not the police of what can be said or not said. I mean, it's such there's so much hubris and so much arrogance with this idea of, well, that offends me, so it's not right. And, that shouldn't be allowed. And then, then you take it 8 steps further and it's, people should be killed for saying things I don't like. I mean, no one is torturing you and requiring that you listen or watch this stuff. It is a choice. Anyway. All right. More leftist media bias. NBC News reports this headline: federal agents arrest undocumented father in San Jose. Oh, look at that guy. He's just a father. That's all he is. He's probably was playing, baseball with his son in the front yard, and he was taken. Is he illegal? No, he's undocumented. He's just undocumented. He doesn't have the right papers. That doesn't mean he's illegal. He's not even an immigrant. He's an undocumented father. That's the way the headline reads. Assistant DHS Director Tricia McLaughlin says, of course, NBC News refuses to tell the American people that this is an illegal alien from Mexico with a rap sheet including lewd and lascivious acts with a child, battery of a spouse, domestic battery, compensation for prostitution, and felony reentry after removal. Wait, no, NBC says this isn't some freaking sick weirdo that hurts children and abuses his spouse. No, it's an undocumented father. That's what it is. So again, there is a propaganda campaign out there to suppress the truth. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said yesterday another lethal kinetic strike, aka bomb, happened with a narco boat, a narco trafficking vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization. Here is the video. One day we're fishing, and the next day there are fish everywhere. No, they weren't fishing. They were trafficking narcotics, the ones that kill people. And, I've talked to liberals about this, and, they, of course, regurgitate the, the line of, what about due process for these people? What about due process? Even Rand Paul, is coming out talking about this. He does not like this. And I respect that opinion. I do. But the mindset of this narco trafficking is that these guys are terrorists because they are killing a ton of Americans. I guess it depends on how you see the actions of these people. Because if there were, people from Al Qaeda, if they were here and they're knocking down our towers, Al Qaeda, fool me once. Not going to fool me. If they were here killing 100,000 people per year and we were flying around drones, taking them out, people would probably be like, yeah, they're killing our people. Would people be requiring due process? I don't think so. Did they require due process of Barack Hussein Obama when he was droning Pakistan and Syria and other places where tons of civilians, thousands of civilians were killed? Where's the due process? You see any outrage then? Oh, it happened. Look it up. Several countries he authorized drone strikes outside of Congress, no due process, and innocent civilians, women and children, got killed. That's not what's happening here. Okay? So it depends on how you look at it. If you're looking at these organizations truly as terrorists, and they've been deemed a terrorist organization by executive order from the president, which then grants additional opportunities to take these people out with different lethal force, because the thinking is the drugs that they're bringing into our country are killing thousands of people. Those statistics don't lie. Now, I think I would ask the question, if you knew 100% there was fentanyl and other deadly drugs on that boat, if you knew it without a fact, unequivocally, no question, would you be okay with this happening? That's the question to ask people. If you knew with 100% certainty there were life-threatening drugs that were going to be brought into this country that were on those boats, on this particular boat right now, would you be okay with them taking it out? Why or why not? If they say no, why? Well, because, we need to drive up to them on another boat and question them. That's what you're wanting to do? I mean, with the amount of drugs that are coming over, how long it would take to actually make a dent in the traffic and the product, because it's not just coming over on boats. We know that. What they're doing here is they're saying, and there's many implications here in this if they're bombing these boats without definitive evidence. And so I take them at their word unless there's contradicting evidence that they absolutely are carrying life-threatening drugs. And so what there's, the reasoning is we're going to take them out because we've told them this is not going to be tolerated. We gave them plenty of time. And anytime we take these people out, we're actually, we're diminishing, the scope and size of the cartels. And also when we do this, it's a major deterrent. And what it's going to do is a lot of people are going to decide, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take these drugs, to the United States anymore. So it's kind of like what's happening with the self-deportations that are occurring is because of the front and center nature of the deportation effort under the Trump administration, because it is so out there in your face with coverage, it's caused a lot of people to self-deport. And that's a deterrent, which is a super efficient mechanism when it comes to achieving a result, because it's not going to cost you the money and they're going to go ahead and do it. And so you make it too painful to continue in this illegal activity. And at least the people with a few brain cells left will say, you know what? I don't want to be deported. I don't want to have to go through that, sit, in detention, in a, detention center and never have the chance to come back. I'm going to go ahead and leave. And that, that's somebody who, at least has some level of common sense. The same would be true for these narco boats. We know they're watching, it's about time the bad guys were a little scared, don't you think? So anyway, the whole issue here is they're bringing stuff in that's deadly. We've designated them as a terrorist organization. And that's really what it comes down to. Are they a terrorist organization or not? Because they are an organized crime entity that is, doing harm, knowingly doing harm to Americans. Are they blowing stuff up? No. But the product they're bringing in is deadly. So if you believe they're a terrorist organization, these are the kind of measures you have to take into account. Now, people like Rand Paul and others want to put these guys into the, regular drug trade, drug dealers, but that's not what this is. I mean, this is, at a much larger scale. So, but if somebody's uncomfortable with this and wants due process, I would say, okay, I understand that. I don't disagree with you in principle, but in practical exercise, there's no way you can stem this flow of fentanyl with any substantial effect without going to drastic measures. And this is, the idea is this is a temporary drastic measure to be a deterrent. Okay. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I think. Of course, you got other people out there saying, we can't do this because, when AOC is president, she might authorize, people to start dropping bombs on Americans.
We don't know that for sure. But just because you call somebody a terrorist, we call lots of people terrorists, doesn't mean that the military is authorized to go after them. And if no other reason, and look, I talked to an awful lot of people who, despite the fact that this is illegal, are comfortable with lethal action against purported, maybe, cartel members. Where does it stop? Do we now start executing drug dealers on the corners of Brooklyn? Where does it stop? If all of a sudden the government, without telling anybody anything, can take this kind of lethal action just because they've decided that they've got the right to do so. If Lindsey Graham and other Republicans want to go the route of saying it's okay to kill people illegally, just so long as the American public supports it, the American public needs to really think that through. There will be a Democratic president someday, and all my MAGA friends who are, cheering on these illegal killings need to imagine who Who gets killed when President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says that it doesn't matter what the law says, she's going to do what she's going to do? So look, I work here, so I understand the complete abnegation of principle and a complete thumbing of the nose at the rule of law. But I would hope that people like Lindsey Graham might not go that path, because it's a very, very dangerous path for this country to go down. They're not.
All right. Again, we go back to that point that J.D. Vance made. You don't restrain or refrain from doing the right thing just because you're worried that the left is going to do it eventually, because they'll do it anyway, right? But we're not talking about American citizens here. And you go, well, what about all lives matter? Okay. But again, if you believe they're a terrorist organization, okay, let's say you don't. What about the intel? Do you think that our military is striking these boats without rock solid intel of what's on there? Because, after they blow these things up, they know it. There's drugs everywhere in the water. So, there's a lot of skepticism and doubt on the actual evidence or intelligence. That's what you heard that guy just say. And that's sort of the reason. Well, we don't even know. But what if we do know? What if our military actually does know? And I believe they do. So definitively, they're bringing tons and tons and tons of fentanyl in here. Is it okay? Is it okay to take them out? I think you have to ask that kind of question. Because again, you have to do something drastic to get something to happen. As far as curtailing this epidemic, man, it's killing over 100,000 people. And you look at the numbers, and there's more kids being, killed from fentanyl than there are from school shootings, or it's pretty close. But nobody gives a damn about that, do they? Only if it means we can, control the Second Amendment, right? I looked this up, actually. Let me see if I still have it. Oops, wrong email. It's in here somewhere. Okay. 0 to 19 years old, gun deaths, excluding suicides and gang violence, okay? Okay, but this would still, include accidents and things like that. But we're not going to say gun violence, like suicide, like that's a problem because these guns need to be locked up. But when you take out gang violence, don't let people say, oh, guns are the number one killer of young people. No. That is dishonest, because the numbers are 0 to 19 years old. So somebody who's 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, an 18 and a 19-year-old is an adult, by the way, but that's the way they include the numbers. And most all of the numbers in that high number, 2/3 of the gun deaths are from gang violence. So again, liberals don't care about gang violence. They want to cry and say that thoughts and prayers don't work in school shootings and want to take away guns, but way more young people are killed by guns from gang violence, but you don't hear them say anything about that. Right? It's not a pressing issue, but they can use a school shooting as, a way to take over the media, because when people are killed from, that are in gangs, people are like, oh, well, we don't really care. But there should be a lot more attention on gang violence and suicide. Those are the biggest problem areas when it comes to guns and young people. But if we look at, let's see here, fentanyl. Do I have that on here? I was trying to get the exact. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This might be it. All right. So fentanyl, right? Fentanyl deaths for young people. Let's see here. By the way, there's double the amount of fentanyl deaths in our country than there are gun deaths. Double. Okay. And there's more deaths in 1 year in the United States from fentanyl than 20 years of U.S. deaths in the Vietnam War. Okay. So basically 580 kids age 0 to 19 roughly die per year from fentanyl, which is double the amount of school shooting deaths. So again, all these deaths are wrong, horrible, sad, and shouldn't happen. But think about where we put the energy and coverage and outrage, where that gets directed to. And I think rightly so, the Trump administration has looked at fentanyl for what it is and the fact that it's killing way more people than a lot of these other things. And this can be prevented. And oh, by the way, it's illegal. And so something drastic has to be done about it. Okay. All right. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked on the statistics there. Daylight saving time this weekend. Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman, says we need an executive order to keep daylight saving time. I do not ever want to fall back again. Lock the clock, she said. And Tommy Tuberville, Senator, supporting that idea.
Mr. President, I come to the floor today to once again talk about the outdated practice of changing our clocks twice a year. This weekend, my constituents back home in Alabama and across America will be forced to change their clocks. As a result, it will be dark in Washington, D.C. at 5 p.m. next week. In the 5 years I have served here in the Senate, making daylight savings time permanent is the number one issue that I hear about back home. I'm proud to have joined my colleague, Rick Scott, early this year in reintroducing the Sunshine Protection Act to make daylight savings time permanent on the federal level. Unfortunately, it has been brought to the floor for a vote. So here I am advocating once again to make the outdated practice of changing our clock a thing of the past. For nearly 60 years, Americans have changed their clocks back and forth twice a year, but the roots of daylight saving time trace back much further. Daylight saving time was introduced during World War I and then reused again during World War II as a temporary way to help conserve fuel and energy. Following the ends of both wars, the decision was to spring forward and fall back, was returned to individual states. It was until 1966 when the system of changing our clocks twice a year that we use now was made permanent. Changing our clocks twice a year might have made sense in the 60s, but it doesn't make sense anymore. The twice a year time change doesn't make sense today. We know the devastating impact of the disruption from so-called standard time has on Americans' health. Studies have suggested that disruption of sleep patterns due to time changes increases the risk of cardiovascular disease and physical injury. Northwestern Medical found that the fall back and the spring forward are connected to a 6% spike in fatal car accidents and 24% higher risk of heart attacks. Think about that. Additionally, the long-term health effects linked to changing our clocks include weight gain, cluster headaches, and depression. You would think we would listen to all that. Bottom line, shifting our clocks disrupts sleep patterns, and it has been proven time and time again to be harmful to the health. Thanks to RFK Jr.'s great work of HHS, a lot of Americans are taking their health more seriously.
Okay. So there you go. He says that's the number one thing his constituents complain about is the. Anyway, I think he wants more daylight at the end of the day. Personally, that's what I want. I know Bree wants the opposite, but I would be okay if we just quit changing. That speaks to the health issues that he's talking about. All right, we're almost done here. Please give us a thumbs up if you're watching on Rumble and repost. If you're watching this as a replay and not live, let me know in the comments. I had a comment from the show the other day letting me know they were watching the replay. Do the same, please, if you're watching this. Right now, though, watching it live, heart the post and repost on X. Give us a thumbs up and repost over on Rumble and a thumbs up on all the other platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. And of course, if you want to support the mission to bring you this content, just by way of helping us cover our hard costs, I don't make a dime off of this. If you want to help us cover our hard costs, you can do so using a Cash App or Venmo contribution of $5, $10, $20 by going to IkeReport.com. Again, Cash App or Venmo to support our mission, IkeReport.com. This is a cis American liberal getting educated by a trans indigenous man of color. So try this one out. If there's a rally or some kind of protest, I should say, near you, try what this guy does.
I'm trans indigenous.
Trans indigenous.
Are you cis American? I'm trans indigenous for ICE. We love ICE.
You love ICE.
We
Why
love
is that?
ICE. We love ICE. Deport them all. You're all trespassers on our land.
Well,
Trans indigenous people are indigenous people, and you're all trespassers on our land. And we want Bovino to deport all of you guys. We love ICE. Trans natives love ICE. We love you, ICE.
what nation are
We
you
love
from?
ICE. The trans nation. Trans nation is just as valid as cis nations. You're not trans.
I mean, he is totally confusing this liberal dude, basically saying I'm trans indigenous, so I can claim that I'm indigenous and that I was here before you, and we are advocating for ICE to deport everybody, even you, this cis American dude.
Native phobic, are you?
No, but I'm not
Okay, I'm
familiar
just
with
checking.
that term. I'm hoping you could.
You're a cis American. I'm trans indigenous. You really need to check your privilege because you're talking to a beautiful trans indigenous person of color right now.
I believe that I am, and I'm hoping to learn more about your perspective.
I'll educate you because you're cis pigmented and I'm trans pigmented, and I'm trying to educate you.
So
My name's Walking Tomahawk.
Walking Tomahawk. Okay, I'm Chad.
Nice to meet you.
Walking Tomahawk.
Walking Tomahawk and Chad here out supporting ICE because we love ICE. They need to deport all the.
This guy's got the ICE out sign, and so he's lumping him in with him as far as supporting ICE. Watch this guy's face.
I'm Chad.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Walking Tomahawk and Chad here out supporting ICE because we love ICE. They need to deport all the cis illegals that came here illegally. We love ICE. I speak for all Native American people when I say we love ICE. We love ICE. And trans indigenous people are indigenous people, and this is my land. And you need to check your privilege.
Check your
'Cause
privilege.
You're talking to a beautiful, trans pigmented, trans indigenous man of color.
What do you mean by transpigmented?
I was assigned white at birth by my parents' bigoted doctor, but I identify as Native American.
Okay, fantastic.
And trans natives are natives. And we're
I was assigned white at birth by my parents' bigoted doctor. Okay.
just as valid as cis natives. Sound familiar?
Not exactly.
It's gender ideology.
Gender ideology. Okay, you got it.
That was well done. Well done. And it actually just exposes the stupidity of so much of the ideals that are advocated for and promoted on the left. Cis American liberal gets educated by trans indigenous man of color. That is beautiful. It's a beautiful clip. I love it. You're so trans. You're so you're so indigenous. You're a person of color. I love the people of color. I love the Indians. I mean, is he not one? I mean, he identifies as one. What's the problem? Right? Starts to break down pretty quick, doesn't it? When you start to question it like that. All right. Thank you guys for the comments. Bree says earlier that Jennifer Welch is horrendous. Right? She is just a nasty woman. So nasty. All right. Let's do today's triggered liberal.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
All right, this dude pretending to be a lady is triggered at In-N-Out Burger because the Bible verse John 3:16 is printed on the bottom of their cups. And, well, this trans dude does not want the word of God anywhere near his demonic self.
Really don't like that it put a Bible verse on my food without my consent. I don't want to eat John 3:16. Get your John 3:16 out of here. Really don't.
Okay, get your John 3:16 out of here. Hey, buddy, you're obviously, having some identity crisis problems, but you're walking into a company that has beliefs. They choose to put it on there. That's their prerogative. If you don't want it, then get out of the In-N-Out Burger and take your animal style whatever with you because it's the word of God. And some people are proud of it and want other people to know about it. And if you would read it, you might learn something. In fact, I know you would if you were truly open to understand it.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
That's it. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here, my friends. Repost this replay. Give us a heart, thumbs up, all that good stuff. Follow me on X. Follow me on Rumble. You can find all my channels at IkeReport.com. Of course, you can also give to the show to help us cover our costs via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. If I don't talk to you before then, the plan right now is Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays at this point. You can check me out on Newsmax on Saturday morning, 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. Central Time. I'll be doing a couple of appearances there if you so choose. If major breaking news happens between now and next week, we will break in when news breaks out and be streaming right here for you. Thanks for your attention. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your support. I love you guys. The truth matters, doesn't it? Remember, never stop being a free and critical thinker because the truth is always worth it. And it's not time to back down. It's time to double down because the truth is worth it. Have a great day.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to The Ike Wingate Show.